Hey, what's happening? I am Jesse Campbell, and Happy New Year. Happy new and prosperous you and year. I have a lot to share with you, and I know that it's going to help anybody who chooses to listen all the way through and apply these things. I've been privy to a lot of information. Like a lot of people, they go to work every single day. They go to school every single day, and you apply yourself. Well, I've applied myself to gaining knowledge, understanding, wisdom, because I want to know why I'm here. I want to know the meaning of life, my purpose. And I want to share some stuff with you. You're not going to like everything I'm going to say, especially those of you who are dependent upon others for your well-being. But then again, you may. It just depends on where you are. Um, but for me, when I get, I like to give. And everything that I've learned, I can't tell. I can't share because people just won't believe it. It's just like I have this voice, and when I was singing secular music other than gospel, everybody that was anybody in the industry kept telling me, when I made a decision to sing gospel, dude, the world needs to hear your voice. God gave you that voice for the, world to experience God. And I couldn't hear it. I couldn't receive it. I wouldn't receive it. I don't care who they were. Famous people like Luther Vandross, who was my freaking idol, my God, and Daryl Porter and Elroy Smith. All these people were telling me, but I wouldn't hear it. But it took me having gone through my own personal experiences to wake up to the truth of why God gave me what he did and why God does what he does and all of that stuff. So I'm going to share some of those things. So this is going to be a long video. You get tired, you got to go. Save your spot, come back, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to do another video. Hey, my time may be up, game may be over. I don't know, but I just want to share it with you right now. So I started singing as a teenager. Before that, I was a drummer, and I was a pretty good drummer in Chicago. And that was because I practiced all the time. Hear what I'm saying to you. Then I started singing, and I practiced so much until I got on people's nerves. I remember my dad was in the kitchen cooking his chili, and it was a big to-do because mom did all the cooking, right? So we're all hanging about while he's doing his thing, and I'm doing me. Oh, Dad was like, shut up, be quiet. And I'm like, okay, Dad, and took off running out the kitchen. But that's just me. I'm going to share some stories, share a few songs here and there because I just want to let it out in the beginning of the year because I was sitting here just looking back in retrospect of my life, and I'm like, you know what? I think I have actually manifested just about everything that I've wanted to date, that is, and even things that I didn't want. I'm like, ooh, man, I wonder if I've manifested everything that has ever happened to me. So this is how my mind works. So now, um, growing up, we couldn't listen to anything other than gospel or Christian music. Secular music, psh, out of the question. So if I wanted to hear something other than, I had to volunteer to walk to White Way, which was the local grocery store. Mom, you need something? Yeah, I need something. So I get my headphones on, and that's when I would listen to Thriller, because it was on the radio like every 15 minutes. And then I would also hear things like, but a chair is not a house, and a house is not a home when. I actually sang that in the high school talent show and won. And I'm like, ooh, maybe there's something to this. So go Pirates, what's up? So anyway, but then I went on to college, and at Columbia, that's when I learned more of, of more music and other than gospel, and I loved it. And I'm like, I can do some of that. I want to do some of that. Now, fast forward, I get a contract on Underworld Capitol Records. Hughes Brothers and Daryl Porter, they got this thing, and I became a part of their label. And my first single was When You Cry, I I cry, you know I feel your pain. And the other one was Where is the love you said you give to me, with Trina Barnett, and that was on the Dead President's soundtrack. And but you know what? Like I said, make a long story shorter, I gave it all up. Oh my God, I'm going to tell you some stuff right now. And I'm going to keep this thing so real. You're going to think this dude has lost his freaking mind. He's stupid. I don't care. I don't care what you think. I just got to let it be known, and I'm going to be done with this thing. But it doesn't matter to me, you know? So because it's all just experience, and I want to help somebody have the experience of their desire. So I gave it up. Shortly after that, I passed up on potential multi-million dollar opportunities. One was Clive Davis. Ooh, ooh, I actually said a name. Yeah. I actually canceled the meeting with him 2 weeks before it was supposed to happen. Oh, they were talking, oh man, this dude is going to be like the male Whitney Houston. Oh man. And I passed it up. Canceled the meeting. Yep, I sure did. And many other things like that. Oh God, I'll just have to tell you the rest in the book. Yeah, and I have proof. I have names and all that stuff like that. But only reason I'm saying these things is because I want you to understand the severity of what has happened. Because I used to grow up and I'd hear people in church, oh, I've passed up $1 million opportunities because I want to follow Christ. And I'd be like, you ain't do nothing. You ain't have no, yeah, right. I just didn't believe it. So I believe in keeping it real. I passed up on it, and other things like that. And you know what? The reason I did is because of my conditioning. Yes, I call it conditioning, church, religiosity, and all that stuff. But then again, once I believed and agreed, then it took a life of its own. But I did those things, and I have since forgiven myself, you know, because it's like this. You ever heard the story of the man who was on the rooftop because there was a flood, and he ended up dying, and he's in heaven, you know, before God. It's like, God, why didn't you save me? And God was like, fool, I done sent you so many rescue attempts, but this man had it in his own mind as to how he wanted God to save him. Oh man, please hear what I'm saying, especially you parents and you pastors, you leaders who are, you know, keeping your people and your children suppressed because of how you think things should happen, and even you personally. So anyway, so I'm like, wow. So I go back to church, and I'm singing around the world and throughout the United States, and I'm really blessed to do this, and great things are happening. But then I started noticing something as I went to the same churches year after year, and same conferences and revivals and things like that. I'm like noticing, because I'm very analytical, like the same people, same praise, worship, dance, and shout, going through the same thing and driving the same cars, having the same issues as I talk with them and interact with them. And I'm noticing there are very few who are prospering, and 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 the leaders. And it's okay to sow into the those who pour into you. So don't get me wrong with that. But then my assessment was like, you know what? It's something more to this. It's something more to this. So I was like, God, you said in all that getting, get understanding. So this is what I want. I want understanding. So I shared with you guys in a previous video about that rock bottom experience, right? Well, the conclusion of that was I prayed and I said, God, open my eyes and enable me to see things and people as they are, and not only as they appear. And if I am here to inspire, to motivate, to encourage, to uplift via my voice, then I need to know truth. And, the truth of the living God of all creation. And it was via that experiential roller coaster of getting understanding that I came to one conclusion, and that was, I've had God in a box. I did. And I made a decision. You know what, God? I'm going to take the limits off of you. Because God, via this quest of understanding, of knowledge, He's so much bigger than I ever could imagine, than I was ever taught or believed. So, God, I'm taking the limits off God. Bam, as a result, instantly took the limits off of myself. Yeah. Then things started happening, like, because if God works mysteriously, they say God works in mysterious ways. And I'm like, yeah, if that's the case, and I believe that to be true, then I'm going to let God work mysteriously through me. Then things started happening. I'm like, you know what? My intention, I want to reach as many people efficiently, as possible in the least amount of time. Some one of those singing reality shows, because now I get it. Now I understand that God gave me this gift not to be confined within the four walls of the church. Let other people, let the others who sing, let them do that. That's great, because we need that, because there are stages in life, there are prerequisites in life that take us from one place to the next place glory to glory and things like that. So it's all good, it's all needed. But I'm like, God, I understand that you are this awesome God that's limitless. So do you. So I was thinking X Factor, because that was like at the top. Everybody wanted to be on X Factor and America's Got Talent, but God had a plan. So I ended up on NBC, The Voice. I talk about that in a previous video too. And in and here's the thing about that: it was just their second season, but they came on right after the Super Bowl, and I was one of the first performers. And that season is when they became number one. So God knew. And then after that, I began traveling the world and sharing in song. But as I was looking back in retrospect, I was like, you know what? I have served my whole life. I remember one time some people in the industry had introduced me to another guy who's very heavily throughout the industry, and he's a music director for so many people. And they were like, hey, why don't you hook Jesse up, help Jesse? And then he told me, I'm not going to do it. I was like, oh, okay. So I was hoping for a reason why. And then he said, you know what? I want to help those who I see helping themselves. I want to assist those who are out and about. I don't see you nowhere. You ain't out networking. I don't see you at no parties, no gatherings. You ain't doing anything. So I was like, okay. So I'm thinking he's entitled to that. And I'm also thinking you can go to hell, because I've been in church laboring in storefronts, mega churches. I've been doing so much, and I'm thinking to myself, well, don't get upset. It's just him. So I let him be him. I was like, well, I know I've been serving so much to the point where I feel like it's time for me to be served, and it's just not going to come through him. So why did I say that? Because then there are other things, like when I gave up all those opportunities, I did what I did based upon the information that I had at that time. So it's like when I was a child, I thought as a child, acted as a child. But now that I'm older, I put those things away from me. And yes, I said that about that conditioning, about where I was, my mind was as it relates to God and church and things like that. But when people say things like, oh, he's not a man of God, or not a man of faith, or he's, the truth ain't in him, I'm like thinking to myself, if you only knew. you know I don't care about that. I don't care about what people think about me anymore, anymore, period. I mean, any more than I care about this gray, this wisdom I got down up in here. I'm not going to cover that up, or any more than I care about my big nose. That sucker is huge, but I would not sing the way that I do, and wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't as big. I'd be sounding like, hello, no, no, no. Be sounding like, it'd be very different, you know? But everybody's got a different path to their their understanding and their truth, and to how and as to how God is and will be in them, through them, as them. So that stuff doesn't matter to me. So now here I am, and I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, I have served and I have done things for whatever people could afford, whatever churches and ministries and leaders wanted to give me, because they will do that. I'll give you this. And in other words, you can take it or you can leave it. Or they'll say, well, come in the name of ministry, do it in the name of Jesus. And that's good. It's a good thing. It really is, because what you put out, it's going to come back to you. And so anyway, so my thing is like, God, this has been great, but I have been chasing that dangling carrot. They dangled that carrot of righteousness, and I'm like, I want it. Here, I'll get it. And will you come and do this for us? But we can only give you this much. Okie dokie, I'll get that. And then I come back home and I'm still lacking, trying to figure out how am I going to make ends meet. Man. So my thing was, God, I've taken the limits off of you as to what you can do through me. Just now, guys. Now I'm going to take the limits off of God as to what you can do for me. And I have no issues with that. I'm just so open to it. I'm like, psh, have your way. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm open. And I believe that this is going to happen. So again, what is it that you want to manifest in your life? And like I said before, at least I think I did, we are manifesting all the time, whether we know it or not, whether we believe it or not, whether we are intentionally doing it or not. And here's a little example, and I'm almost done. My baby girl was about 4 years old, and we had just moved into this little tiny apartment, and we didn't have much in there at all. And baby girl, she just wanted, baked potato. She kept asking for a baked potato. I'm like, okay, baby girl, we'll get a baked potato. So I pick her from school one day, and we go to the grocery store and come home, and I fix up the dinner, and everything was done except the baked potato. So I go to the bag to put it in the microwave before I knew, about the microwave ovens and everything. I'll still use it in moderation, but the baked potato wasn't there. So I was like, well, baby girl, we've got chicken, we've got this. And she's like, but all I wanted was a baked potato. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta give my child a baked potato. So I'm going somewhere with this. So I was like, okay. So I put her things on, her shoes, and I was like, all right, cool, let's go get the baked potato. I get to the door, and I was like, ooh, I left the chicken on. So I go back to the oven, and I'm like, oh man, if we were to have an accident or something like that. And then I turn the oven down on low, and I was like, well, maybe I should turn it off. And I was like, wait, what am I doing? What am I thinking? We're not going to have an accident. What kind of stupid stuff is that? And I'm like, wait, where's this come from? And I'm like, you know what? And then I began to go old school church on it. And I'm like, I bind that thought in the name of Jesus. And I'm like, Satan, the Lord rebuke you. Because we grew up in a church where we were casting out demons and all that kind of stuff. So we know how to put things in its proper place. And I'm like, Satan, the Lord rebuke you. I plead the blood over my child. I plead the blood of Jesus over my life and over my car. We will not die. We will live. And I just went all in, and I'm speaking in tongues because I didn't know what else to say. And still had an accident. Somebody hit me, T-boned the car, and was just 3 feet from my baby girl. Lord knows what could have happened. But I blacked out. When I came to, daughter was screaming, and I'm like, this is not happening. The door was bent because the front end of the car was bent all the way over to I couldn't even open my door. But I got strength from somewhere, got my baby girl out, and I'm sitting on the side of the curb waiting for the ambulance to come in. And I'm like, this did not happen. God, why did you allow this to happen? How could you do this? What did I do wrong? And I'm like, I just couldn't understand. How could this happen? And you might think, well, he didn't have any power. Shoot, God knows I have some power. But here's the thing. God let me know that I was so fixated on what I didn't want to happen that it happened. I was so focused on what I didn't want, and I put so much power and energy into that which I did not want, to the point where I got it. I manifested it. That quick amount of time, in like 30 minutes. You see the power and the severity of that? And I'm like, God, anyway, so it's just like, whatever you resist, that's what will persist. Like lifting weights. Especially you guys, you know about that. You in there pumping iron. Whatever muscle that is meeting that resistance of the weight, that's what's going to grow. So I'm like, ooh. So as bad as that was and as bad as it could have happened, was it really bad now? No. It was a good thing. So that's why even when the Bible talks about count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, all of that, so there's so much deep coded message in the Bible. Get understanding. So I said that to say we're manifesting all the time. It's like, have you ever been around someone, and I'm almost done, been around someone or in a closed quarters and someone's coughing and sneezing and snotting and everything and all that stuff like that, and you leave that environment and you're thinking, I'm going to get that person's cold, dog, and then you start feeling the symptoms. Next thing you know, you're sick. It's that simple. It's the mind. The mind is the center of divine happenings. It's all throughout the Bible. And if churches would teach this truth, the parishioners would grow, they would flourish so greatly. Because here's the thing, I'm going to tell you something that people don't want you to hear. And I love my pastor friends, but a lot of people in leadership, they teach from this place of fear and separation. Yep, they do. And God is where God's always been, which is right within us. Up there, out there somewhere. Yeah, that's true. But she is also where it's always been and where it always will be. Yeah, I said she. God cannot create unless he's female as well. Man created that stuff way back in the day to be superior. But bottom line is, somebody don't want this to be known, but I'm going to be done. And I'm going to, yeah. So, in that place of fear. It's no different than terrorism, terrorist attacks. Everybody wants you to live in fear so that it could keep you where you've always been. Subservient. I've got to have. But if they would only teach truth, you would want to go back to church. You would want to gather because you'd be so happy. You go through church like, hey, how you doing? Look what God has done. What God has done for me, he'll do it for you. I don't need your pulpit. I've been on the street. I've sang on the street. I've done what I've come to do. So it doesn't matter what you think, because you don't have a heaven or a hell to put me in. So I just want people to become aware. Just know that God is all there is. And in conclusion, God is the substance of all things, known, unknown, seen, unseen, physical and metaphysical. And when we think a thought, we shape this mold in our minds. And God, being the substance of all things, is that infinite wave of infinite possibilities. And God fills that mold, and it's via our faith and the applicable work that we do, uh, and it's that visualization, and we think it until we begin to feel it, and we meditate on these things. That is what illuminates what's in our mind, and it's illuminated and it's solidified in our reality, in our real world, and we manifest it. And the problem is a lot of us don't know what we want to manifest, and we're still manifesting. But when you don't know what you want, it's okay, because knowing what you don't want helps you to know more of what you might want, what you may want, and that's a little bit closer. So I don't know how many more of these I'm going to do, but I'll ask you this final question. What would you do if there were no limits? What would you do if you took the limits off of God and took the limits off yourself? How would you be? Where would you go? What would you have? And you really want to know how to expedite that manifestation process? And make it inclusive of others, more than just yourself. Make it inclusive. The more you include in this desire of manifestation, I believe, the quicker it'll happen. So me, yeah, I want to continue using my voice. To me, it doesn't matter if it's in song or if it's in speaking, because as much as I love to sing, I didn't know what I was going to say in this video. I'm not going to speak what I don't, because I believe what I need, what I desire, it manifested, shows up. I desire to be a man of greater integrity, to honor my word, to pay those whom I owe. You know, even via the government or taxes or people who have blessed me along the way, because I'm so grateful now because of where I am. If I was to die today, please know that I'm okay. I trust baby girl is going to be well. But I love life. I love God. I mean, okay, I'm gonna leave it at that, because I could keep going, because I'm just at this place of love and light. And this is what I bid you. Take the limits off God and see what happens. Take the limits off yourself. Check out those previous videos. Pass this on to someone if you've received it. And I bid you love and light. Peace. I'm Jesse Campbell.